Hey, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and welcome to episode 67 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. You know what this episode is called? We all have mental health issues. And you know what? I always say for every episode, we have more in common than we think. And what we have in common can change the world. Yeah, we all have mental health issues, and I just wanted to come to you with this mini episode to speak to that. Just like we all have physical health issues, it could be we have a tendency to injury when we do athletics. If we're really young and we're like in high school or 20 something years old and we're playing some sport and we have a tendency to injury. It could be that we're a little older. Have you ever had somebody in your family that suffered from alcoholism, drug addiction, someone that you're close to? Well, you know what? That affects your mental health. I didn't look this up before I came to confirm this, but I've written on this before, so I'm going to try to go from memory. I believe 1 in 4 women have been victims of sexual abuse, and 1 in 6 men have been victims of sexual abuse. I don't think I have that reversed. I don't think the actual numbers are reversed, but generally, a lot of people have been victims of sexual abuse. Tragic as it is, you know what? That affects our mental health. Do you have a tendency to lie? Have you had a tendency to cheat? There's just so many things. If we have a tendency to do those things, we have mental health issues. Let's say we lie about something. If we can't show up in honesty, well, there's a reason for that. If we feel that, you know what, I can't trust this person. I don't feel like I can trust this person to tell them the truth. Well, that has to do with our mind and our spirit. A spirit that is not a human spirit, that is not feeling good, affects our mental health. Have you ever had a day where you had to get up and go to work and you just felt like you just could not get up out of bed? That's a mental health issue. It's not a physical thing. It's an ache inside. It's a mind where, oh my God, do I have to deal with this again today? Day after day after day. That's mental health. There's times when something real and deep is going on with us, and we try to share that with someone. At some point in many of our lives, maybe this hasn't happened to every single one of us, but have you ever tried to share the truth about a circumstance with someone and they didn't believe you? Just trying to reveal your authentic self and they don't believe you? That affects our mental health. And I say that because I was looking at last night's episode of Don Lemon, and he had one of the officers that he's had on many times from the January 6th riot at the Capitol, Michael Fanone. And they were talking, and before their conversation, there were 4 men that were shown on the screen who had committed suicide, who were officers who responded during the riots. Have you ever known anyone who's committed suicide? Off the top of my head, I can think of 4 people. Mental health, an ache, a sadness, broken, feeling there's nowhere to go. Have you ever known anyone who was terminally ill? Goodness. We have all experienced mental health. And it just gets me this mindset of some of us who are unaccepting, judgmental of people who are going through things. I remember twice in my life getting into arguments with two different people about suicide. One was I was in college and I was in the cafeteria at the school that I attended, and somehow I'm sitting at a table with a group of people, and the conversation turned to suicide. At that point, I knew two people who had committed suicide and would soon know of another person who would take their life. And for me, if a person takes their life, they have to be so distraught, feel so alone to be in that space. And a person that I actually got into an argument with was telling me that if a person took their life, they were going to hell. I was just like, I'm telling you, we're yelling back and forth about this. And another time was after 9/11. And the person that was doing my hair at the time, I went to get my hair done, and we're talking after 9/11. And she was struck by the people who had jumped out of the World Trade Center towers. She just thought that that was unacceptable, that they would feel that they would be in such a state. They went to work that day thinking they're going to work. I think it was a Tuesday, right? They thinking it's a regular Tuesday. And you know what? The building they're in has been attacked. It's on fire. It's about to be taken down. And some people are calling their family. That's what I'm amazed about. I'm amazed that somebody could flip a switch and have the wherewithal. Amazed in admiration to have the wherewithal to call up a wife or a mother or a sister and say, I'm about to die. It's a regular Tuesday an hour ago. And somebody has the wherewithal to call up a family member, the strength to do something like that. That was amazing to me. But the person that I was talking to thought that some of the people that jumped out of the towers to their death, oh, they were going to hell. That's what she thought. I just think that when we are so judgmental about other people, it really speaks to how judgmental we are with ourselves. And I just think that right now in this pandemic that we're in, that this is a time to ease up, because there is one of us. Some of us may have heard that phrase before and know what I'm saying. But there is not one of us that has not been just so broken and so low at some point in our lives, whether it's through a death, whether it's through a personal experience, whether it's through somebody hurting us, through a broken relationship, whether it was a parent, a sibling, a friend, a romantic partner. We have all been broken. And I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if it's I've trained for this all of my life and I should be able to deliver in this moment. Sometimes we are in pain. We're in pain sometimes. And I would think that we would get it being in this pandemic. And we're still in it. I would think that we would get it. I don't have the words to speak to how I think we should get it in this pandemic right now. But I heard Michael Fanone say to Don Lemon something that I was thinking just 5 minutes before. He said that some of the strongest people he knows have suffered from mental health issues. I know me, I'm one of the strongest people I know. And I only say that because I have had a lot of death in my family, and it has taken strength to heal from that death and also to be with my loved ones as they experience the journey to the end of their human life, and to understand that they still exist beyond the end of their human life, to really see the end of their human life for what it was, even though I was hurting. And even after they were gone, while I was still grieving, to maintain a balancing act of what I know spiritually and what my human self is telling me. I mean, anybody who has been through a death, someone being killed, someone dying from a terminal illness, someone dying naturally, it can be traumatic. It can be traumatic. Another person that was the strongest person I've ever known was my mom. My mom was the most delicate person I ever knew. I mean, her frame for me was very delicate. She was my mom, so I felt very vulnerable about her. But my mom, she was the strongest person I ever knew. Fought discrimination, fought racism, stood up in feminism, instilled these things in me and my brothers. My dad, he was 50 years old when he died. He was a cop. He drank a lot, and he told us he didn't start drinking heavily until he was on the job because of all the things that he had to see and experience. That's mental health. That's mental health. And one of the reasons that I love this podcast, and I'm coming to you on this podcast so much and have called it Let's Start Healing, is because we have more in common than we think. What we have in common can change the world. And the things that I'm speaking to, it's not just personal. There's just so many of us out here in the world and this stratosphere, across the country, across the globe, who have experienced so many things that hurt us, that affect our spirit. What affects our spirit, our human spirit, is mental health. And if you're able to walk through this world and not be in any pain, you are truly, truly enlightened. And I mean that like from the highest part of myself. You are an enlightened being, and you are where most of us want to be. You are the ultimate if you can walk through this world in no pain. But if you have pain, if you have experienced deep pain, then you have had an issue with your mental health. So I say all of this to say, not only let's start healing, but let's start having empathy. We don't have to have all of the answers around why the other person does what they do. Why Naomi Osaka said, can't do this. Or Simone Biles said, can't do this. Or someone says that they can't do this. I'm going to tell you something. This is bringing something to mind. I'm in media. Obviously, I have a podcast. But the way that I got into media was I was in the investment business. I actually worked for Bear Stearns, the now defunct Bear Stearns, for about 10 years. But much longer than that, I was in the investment business. Worked for Bear Stearns in New York. I came to Atlanta, and I had written a book when I came to Atlanta for the second time after I had been with Bear Stearns for 10 years. And when I got to Atlanta, I wanted to promote my book. I tried to sell my book. I published it independently. The book was on relationships between Black men and women. It's called Colliding on the Road to Happiness. And honestly, I only got so far with book sales, publishing it independently. And I decided that I was going to go back to the investment business because that was what my profession had been for so many years. So in Atlanta, I started working for Morgan Stanley. Well, you know what? I'm not going to date myself. I'm just going to tell you this is the way that it went. Okay. And so I started working for Morgan Stanley. And after a while, I developed these back pains and shoulder pains. And it was just so bad. And I knew that I'm not in my purpose. I'm a writer. I'm not in my purpose. I had written this book. I want to speak to certain issues in the world. I'm not in my purpose. And it was affecting me like I just woke up with this shoulder pain. Well, that was mental health. Let me tell you something. I quit my job within 2 weeks. I just quit my job. And it was 2 years before I got with a media company that has had a significant impact on my life. But that was mental health. Well, I'm going to go now because my refrigerator is in the background making these noises saying so I'm going to go now. But I just had to come and speak to this mental health issue. Stop tripping. We all experience mental health problems, just like we all have a physical health problem at one point or another, whether we break an arm or a finger, or we have an injury or a significant illness like cancer or diabetes or high blood pressure. We've all been affected by it, whether it's us personally or a family member. So let's get our minds, body, and spirits right with each other, with ourselves, and let's start healing.